Hey everybody, welcome to What the Flick, Bibbs, Meredith, Alonso. Okay, I never saw the original, but I was told that it was very important that I watch DuckTales, which is now back on Disney Channel, and so I did, and so let's talk about it.
DuckTales, okay, so DuckTales, Meredith and I, you're about the same age. DuckTales was on when we were a kid, and DuckTales was a very, very big deal. It was a Disney series that kind of kicked off a whole block of exceptional programming that included Darkwing Duck, Chip 'n Dale's Rescue Rangers, Tailspin, and eventually some real crap as well. We will not speak of the
Hercules?
Yeah, I was thinking of the sci-fi action version of the Mighty Ducks.
Oh, I never watched that.
No one should have. Gargoyles, we can't forget.
Okay, no,
there was amazing stuff here.
Yeah, or a Batman animated series and X-Men animated series.
Those weren't Disney.
I know.
I'm speaking specifically Disney, but there was a good time.
I'm just talking about that beautiful age.
It was a great time.
I know.
But DuckTales kicked a lot of that off, and it is based off of the works of Carl Barks, and later on, like Don Rosa would pick it up, and it'd be a lot of brilliant work.
Because a lot of people, I think, even from our age, don't know that it started as a comic book. DuckTales was a comic book that was then adapted into a cartoon.
Yeah, I actually want to do just a quick plug here. My friend Kurt Holtman has a podcast called The Comics Canon, C-A-N-O-N, and he had me on recently. We talked about the Carl Barks Uncle Scrooge comics because they are super influential. George Lucas cites them as there are moments in I think 7 Cities of Cibola where you're like, oh, that was in Raiders, So yeah, the comics that this comes from is great stuff, and this show is beloved. I was in college when it came on, and I got stoned to my VHS collection, so I never saw this show. But I did see this new one, and it was fun.
It's really, really fun, and I think they've done a really, really good job of capturing, honestly, the thing that I was most worried about, which is that adventurous spirit of it. The sense of humor has changed a bit, the characters have changed a bit, and we'll talk about that. But this was an Indiana Jones, Mickey Mouse, Disney adventure,
which is DuckTales at its best. Like I was watching it with my boyfriend, and he's like, I don't remember it being this adventure thing. I'm like, no, that's all it is. It's like Johnny Quest and Indiana Jones, all that wrapped into one, just with ducks.
No, absolutely. I mean, you look at the opening credits of the original, and it's just them running from mummies and stuff, and that was a significant amount of it. And that was one of the things that I think really made DuckTales so much of a success at the time was we never had. Like Indiana Jones didn't inspire like an animated series based off it, which is weird. You'd think it would have.
Indiana Jones.
Yeah, which really wasn't the same vibe. It just didn't have the same impact. DuckTales was Indiana Jones on TV, but it had ducks, so bonus.
I also want to bring up the original DuckTales. The animation was far superb than what we were seeing in a lot of animated series at the time.
Yes.
We were talking about how it kicked off this golden age of cartoons. A lot of it had to do with just the quality of animation, and seeing that continue because cartoons can be made very cheaply now, and it can show.
They were made very cheaply then too.
But still, like we see a lot of like cuts taken where you don't really include backgrounds, or you don't animate things as much, and just even that opening scene where the sky behind Donald's houseboat, it almost looked paper and painted, and I just thought that there was such a nice detail of like kind of establishing like. Started in books and then came animated, and like it was just a nice little nod.
And I think they even had the way that they adapted the storyline a little bit, because in the original Donald Duck goes into the Navy and then the kids go off with Scrooge McDuck and they have adventures, but here it's way more about sort of the legend of DuckTales. In a way, like, for people like us who grew up with it, it's nice to see that sort of deified a little bit. But for kids, I mean, they probably have heard people talk about DuckTales. DuckTales isn't readily available and like a bunch of different streaming services, et cetera. So you've heard so much about DuckTales, we need to make sure you understand not just that the show will be good, but that there is a rich history of DuckTales.
I feel like Webby is us. Webby, because they've aged her a little bit. She's no longer this little like toddler. She's very precocious, and she thrives on the old tales of Scrooge and Donald and the family. And
I love what they've done with Webby.
I know. So much of like, I feel like our specific age group point of view is almost through Webby, and I love that. And where like Huey, Dewey, and Louie are the new generation.
Okay, I have questions.
Yes.
All right, in the Barks comics, Huey, Dewey, and Louie are sort of like one personality with 3 heads. In DuckTales, are they differentiated in the original one?
No, the original, there might be subtle variations, but they're basically the same character, trifurcated.
Because this one, they seem to have actually bothered to give them personality.
And I think they've done a really, really good job of keeping them very, very similar, but just have slightly differently. One's more emotional, one is more analytical, and one is evil. And I love Louie. I love Louie in this.
He's not evil, he just has no filter.
I know, but I think he's great. And I think they've done a good job of keeping them different enough without trying to create like false drama where they like they're against each other or some other bullshit. They're the same. They're brothers. They're close. They're really, really close. At some point, they've just slightly individual.
And I think it was interesting though, jumping a little bit ahead of how much Dewey took center stage in the second half of this episode, because it felt like, but normally we'd see them all together, but I think it's important to separate them and them to have their own time on screen doing various actions, because again, it separates them a bit more. Because Dewey, at first he kind of irritated me, and now I'm like, man, you want family. I mean, they all kind of do. Like, they all definitely suffer from this abandonment syndrome.
Right. Well, I did want to bring up, the big finale of the episode is one of them just saying, "Mom," and it's like, because in these comics, and I assume in the original show, there's a lot of uncling going on, but not a lot of parenting. So is this the first time we've ever had their actual biological parents mentioned?
No. Della Duck has been mentioned before. I'm actually not 100% sure who their father is, but Della Duck is a figure who has shown up a lot in sort of the prequel comics when young Scrooge and young Donald. Sometimes she's Donald's cousin, sometimes she's his twin sister. But yeah, they don't dwell on dead parents a lot in DuckTales because it's kind of a depressing kind of idea.
Who was Johnny Quest's mom?
Good question. But yeah, no, this seems like she's finally going to be a focus, which is good. And I think that's a good element. It feels like a natural element. Especially when you're going to have this whole thing about how Donald used to be an adventurer with Scrooge. Why not?
And they obviously had a falling out. I mean, that tension when they first meet is
it's really good.
It's really good.
Yeah, you're right. The family, the estranged family quotient of this is actually a nice little focus, and I hope they don't abandon that too quickly. Obviously, the pilot's getting all the pieces together. We've got Donald and the kids. They're living with Scrooge McDuck.
No, I mean, if the ending line is mom, then clearly that's a plot they're going to be.
And it might be a seasonal plot.
Yeah, it could be a long arc. So I assume that Webby is getting more of a role here now to keep it from being such a duck sausage party.
She was always in there, but she was this stick in the mud who only wanted to play tea parties. She was the one who didn't want to do adventuring, and now she wants to be actively involved. She wasn't a great character.
No, and they've really done a
but there weren't any female characters in the original that were gung ho and
not gung ho. Well, not main characters. There might have been some side characters here or there popped in for an episode or two.
But I feel but we're talking about '90s Disney where you had your boy shows and your girl shows.
Oh, I'm sure.
And I think what Disney XD is.
Well, no, I think there's a couple of exceptions. I think Goslin in Darkwing Duck was a very adventurous character.
If you want to talk about cartoons I idolize and cartoon characters I idolize, like Gosling and that RGB rainbow song, I knew that up until right this moment. Now that I can't recite it, but we'll talk about my obsession about Darkwing Duck later when the Darkwing Duck episode happens.
Yay!
But I think Disney's done such a great job of updating, one, this story, and two, of being very cognizant of who their audience is. And that, while a lot of older generation is gonna watch this, we don't dumb down cartoons as much for children.
No.
And I think there's a lot. I don't know, just
if what we were talking about was a golden age for animation, we are living in a glorious renaissance right now of incredible animation that is geared towards kids, but you can enjoy it on any level. And that's everything from Steven Universe to Star and the Forces of Evil.
Regular shows
a little bit, Voltron, Legendary Defender is excellent right now.
Over the Garden Wall.
Over the Garden Walls, I don't even know if that's for kids. That thing is insane. I loved that.
I hear Castlevania is good.
That's definitely not for kids though.
Oh, okay.
I haven't seen that one yet. But yeah, there's a lot of incredibly Gravity Falls. Oh my God, how could I forget? It's one of my favorite shows ever. There's this incredible time now where we're doing stuff that is geared towards kids. It is obviously completely easy, acceptable for children to appreciate and enjoy, but is challenging, is full of character, it is full of big ideas, and honestly is operating on a higher level of creativity than I would say even most quote unquote adult shows. I will take the Pepsi challenge with an episode of Gravity Falls and almost anything on primetime right now.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Yeah, I feel like just thinking from my childhood, I revert to Batman the Animated Series was the only cartoon from my childhood that I felt didn't dumb it down for kids. It felt very much, even I can still watch it today and it still feels very adult in many ways.
I grew up with a lot of crap animation in the 70s.
That's why all this stuff was special.
I watched a lot of like old Looney Tunes and Woody Woodpecker in the afternoon because they were still rerunning them even though they were like horribly violent and racist.
We revere, our generation reveres stuff like DuckTales because most of it was shit.
Right, no, I know. You made me watch Gem and the Holograms once. I still remember.
Gem wasn't that bad, but like there's like Chuck Norris Karate Commandos was on TV. It was a hellish time to be a child and enjoy what they were still trying to shove Rubik the Amazing Cube down our throats. Come on.
Okay.
No, okay, I didn't have it so bad. I at least had super.
Yeah, and we have those cartoons to think about or to thank because of what we got in the 90s and now today. They all just build on themselves. Now back to this episode.
Yes.
Because so much happened. So Donald Duck needs a job.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he's gonna go. I love the twist that it ended up being.
Flintheart Glumgold.
So good.
Yeah.
So I just want to point out
Flintheart Glumgold.
Yeah, who is now the most Scottish duck that there is. I can't do Scottish accents.
No, it's fine.
Did you catch who Donald was sitting next to in the waiting room?
I look familiar. Who was his?
I swear to God, it was Roxy from Goofy Movie.
Oh my God, I think you're right. I think you're right. I think that's a good little shout out.
Because also they mention Spoonerville later on, which is where Goof Troop takes place. So I'm wondering, like, did her and Max not work out? Or are they looking to move? So because we know that this all exists in a shared universe.
We do.
We also get a mention of Cape Suzette because that's where the boys were going to take the boat to, and that's Tailspin.
You're right. Oh my God.
And St. Carnard, home of my favorite Duck Detective.
Okay.
Duck, so.
It's all laying groundwork.
It is.
This is going to be a shared duck universe.
I'm so excited.
I am too, actually.
Duck and dog.
And duck and dog. Whatever Goofy is. I'm still hazy on it. I don't think I've ever officially said.
But yeah, so we see Donald in the waiting room, and I
love Flintheart Glumgold's new design because he used to look kind of like Scrooge McDuck in a kilt.
Exactly.
And now I want to squeeze him. He's like a marshmallow duck with a beard. Like he's so cute. Like I just want to hug Flintheart Glumgold. I never thought I'd say that.
He's actually a bit more. He's a good villain. He has a little bit more depth to him. Well, just a bit.
A little. Like he was always just jealous of Scrooge McDuck. These are the two richest ducks in the world. And they happen to be both from Scotland and of the same age and live next to each other.
And I'm sure this is a Barks thing, but for a long time, the sort of popular, the different nationalities have the sort of the popular stereotype, and the thing about Scottish people was that they were cheapskates.
Yeah.
That was their sort of kind of archetypal stereotype that you would see. So the idea that Scrooge McDuck was not only like the richest duck in the world, but like a super penny pincher and like bathing in his own coins and stuff. That was where the Scottish thing came from.
We haven't really talked about the new Scrooge. First off, David Tennant is doing a great job. I was worried. I mean, even with David Tennant, I was like, oh God, there's going to be a new Scrooge McDuck. Will it sound right? Will it be so weird?
It sounds so good.
He's good. It's a little different, but he's nailing it.
I'd rather it be different than anyone trying to copy the original voice actor.
This is actually my one problem with
the show. Okay, wait. The DuckTales guy is not the original Scrooge McDuck.
No,
there were Scrooge McDuck shorts back in the day.
But I meant from the original DuckTales.
I just want to be clear, kid.
Not the OG Scrooge McDuck, but OG DuckTales cartoons.
Listen,
thank you.
Barry Nelson was the first James Bond. We think of Connery as the proto James Bond.
Come on, that is an unfair comparison.
Just saying.
There were actual Disney Scrooge McDuck shorts before there was a DuckTales TV show.
And that's fine.
That's all I'm saying.
We got used to one of them.
Yeah.
Okay, fine.
Okay.
But maybe it's just my undying love, and David Tennant can only do great things, that I have no qualms when I heard he was cast. That actually was like, I gotta watch this now.
Yeah. The only critique, honestly, I think I have with this is actually the voice of Donald, which is harder to understand than usual.
Yeah.
He's supposed to sound weird, but like I really had some trouble.
Yeah, it's like
I had the titles on.
I should do that. Yeah, it was just unintelligible, and it's like he's supposed to be like raspy and high pitch and talk fast, but not to the point that I'm like, especially if I was a 6-year-old child watching this, I'd be like, I don't know what he's saying.
Hit the consonants. That's the only thing that matters.
I'm reminded of of Daffy Duck in Who Framed Roger Rabbit saying, "Can anyone understand what this duck is saying?"
Yes.
Yeah, it was seriously the worst than usual.
They just took it to an extreme.
Fortunately, he's not in it so much, and not so much relies on his dialogue.
Yeah, I hope that changes as the other episodes come out.
I did like the gag in which how quickly they put him back in a sailor suit.
I know, that was very good. Where he belongs in his cute little sailor suit.
So we also have Scrooge McDuck is wanting to reclaim his former glory, and this was something I was actually worried about when they brought DuckTales back, is that the way we look at the rich right now is a little different than it was a few decades ago. But I think they do a good job of reminding us that Scrooge McDuck, he didn't inherit wealth. He actually earned every dime he ever
went
made.
to the Klondike. He went to
I like that they call him an adventure capitalist.
Yes.
He actually he worked his butt off for all of this, and his sense of pride is at the very least somewhat earned.
Yeah.
And as a result, I think it's easier to look up to him, and I think it's easier to appreciate what he actually is doing for all this success he gets.
They've also done a great job of making him less miserly and much less like when he dives into the pit of gold. He's happy, he's swimming, he doesn't look like I'm hoarding all this. Like there's, and they get that beat so early on about how important family is. You know, we kind of get him like that moment where Dewey overhears him like, I don't need family, I don't want family or nothing but trouble. We have that, we have him not having Donald and the nephews foisted upon him, he offers his home to them. And I think that's a big understanding and a big change from the original DuckTales cartoon, where he still is kind of like seen as this gold hoarder. And I think he's just going to be, like you said, I think they're a lot more cognizant of the wealthy these days, and they don't want to point
want him to strike a good tone.
Yeah, they don't want him to be like a Wolf of Wall Street.
No, I think that'd be a negative idea.
Yeah.
Is this this was an hour-long pilot. Is this gonna be a half-hour series?
It's gonna be a half-hour series. I think there's gonna be at least one other hour-long special. It's not returning until late September, which screw you, Disney. Come on. What are you doing to us?
First one's always free.
Oh my God. Yeah, and they repeated this on Disney XD like all day on Saturday, which thank you. I forgot to DVR it, so that worked out great. But like, yeah, gotta wait over a month?
I know.
Sucks. Like I want more DuckTales and I want them now.
It's good to want things.
Yeah. I will say, and on voice actors, I really, really wish Launchpad had been voiced by Patrick Warburton. I wanted that.
Honestly,
that might have been a little on the nose.
It's so on the nose now. I feel like Patrick Warburton is just like he just pops in. Like, whenever you're making an animated show, Patrick Warburton just shows up. It's like, hey, you need anybody?
But I could still want that. Because I also, and that was like my other thing.
Bennett, I
know, no, he is good. But I also was a little disappointed because Launchpad is normally, well, a little out his head in the clouds. He's usually one of the more grounded forces from DuckTales. So I feel like
he kind of represents the working man.
A little too much. Like there's just a little too cognitive dissonance there. But I do like that they remembered that he knows Swedish.
That's a thing? I didn't remember that at all.
He speaks Swedish.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that was good.
I had no memory of that, so thank you. I thought that was just a random joke.
The name of a real person. I don't know that I will watch this just out of time, but I will definitely watch any of the Ma Beagle episodes.
There you go.
Because she's played by Margot Martindale, who is my lady.
Yeah.
That's
so
cool.
I got to see that.
That's really cool. Yeah, I don't know if we're gonna keep doing the whole series, but we really wanted to talk to everybody about the pilot because a lot of people are really excited about it, and thank God it actually lived up to that hype. Oh my God.
Also,
we should also mention real quick, Danny Pudi, Ben Schwartz, and Bobby Moynihan as Huey, Dewey, and Louie.
And doing a great job.
Perhaps
making it their own. Making it their own.
And whoever wrote this, so Gabby McStaberson, the female mercenary that Goldblum hires, Stabby McStaberson is a great little internet joke. I really appreciate that. Like it's like one of those like random
Bodie
things.
McBoatface.
Yeah, it's like a Bodie McBoatface, but it's like a nice little nod to like my particular generation who kind of exists a lot on like, you know, pop culture sites, mainly like anime type sites. So I really appreciate the Gabby McStaberson. That was great. Whoever did that, kudos.
All right,
kudos to everyone.
DuckTales is back eventually. We may or may not still be talking about it on here, but you know, go check out the pilot.
I'll be talking about it at least.
I'll be watching it for my own pleasure.
Exactly.
Ooh.
Woo.